Welcome back. The Autonomous Kurdish region of northern Iraq heads to the polls on Saturday in an election not expected to yield surprise results, but which may determine the direction the region is heading. Joining me to discuss the issue is Peshwaz Feyzullah from the Atlas Economic Research Foundation. He's the editor of Chiraizadi.org, the Global Initiative's Kurdish website. Prior to this, Peshwaz was managing editor of Hawlati, the highest circulating newspaper in northern Iraq. Here also is Jerry Weinberger, professor of political science at Michigan State University and an adjunct fellow of the Hudson Institute in Washington, D.C. He just returned from 4 months of consulting for the American University of Iraq, Suleimani. And from the largely Kurdish area of Erbil, we now have Safin Dizei, is the head of international relations for Kurdistan Democratic Party, to which the current president Masoud Barzani belongs. As we get back into the discussion, I want to welcome you in, Mr. Dizei, and ask what's the mood of the Kurdish people as they go into this election. Is there an active interest, or do you get a sense that with an outcome that's almost predicted, that there is a little bit of indifference?
I think it is important to outline that this particular election is somewhat different from previous ones. Since the campaign has been quite extensive, very colorful and very dynamic, the political leaders, including Presidents Talabani and Barzani, have traveled widely across the country, and they have met the public in rallies, with meetings. And secondly, they were obliged to present the public with their political program, what the next government would do. That in itself will create some responsibility before the public. Once the new government is formed, then obviously they have to meet those promises. And thirdly, perhaps most interestingly, it's the first time that the president is actually elected by popular vote. The first term was 4 years ago, and the election actually took place, or the president was elected by the parliament upon request of President Barzani, and the law was ratified by the parliament. The public will be voting for the president. In addition to that, we seem to be going in the direction of having some active and energetic opposition. We hope that this vibrant opposition will be in the parliament, and hopefully this will entrench democracy and democratic principles and values further in Iraqi Kurdistan. The public are very much eager to go to the ballot boxes, and today we had the security services, medical services and prisoners who voted early, and on Saturday morning the public at large will go to the ballot boxes.
Let me ask here, Peshwaz Feyzullah, how much more accountable or how much more active will the next government have to be, because there is now a much stronger opposition? This is, the dynamics have changed now, and there are people who will speak out as opposition politicians or as opposition parties to what the government's doing. How much more active will the government have to be?
Well, first of all, I would like to correct something that generally is considered as a fact, but which is not. That this is not the first time there is an opposition group. In the 2005 election, there was an opposition group, and the Islamic parties have won some seats in the parliament.
I was thinking of the growth of it, because now there's the change list. It's much more active, it seems.
It's on the surface of it, yes, it is. The difference might be the increase in number of the opposition groups in the parliament. The important thing to me is the change in the structure, which is, I think, is what matters, not the formality of it, whether you have half of the parliament opposition or not, because the accountability of the government towards the parliament and the president to the parliament and vice versa are not yet being laid out in an ideal democratic system. Therefore, the parliament requests the government for submitting the budget, for example, or has asked the government for declaring their oil contracts that they didn't do. So there were demands, but the government didn't do that. And what we want to see is that the whole process will go forward by the government being accountable in front of the parliament, and of the parliament in front of the media, and so on.
Jerry Weinberger, of course, before I take another viewer question, there's the issue that there's tension between the Arab and Kurd side in Iraq. You have Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki is reportedly, out of touch with President Masoud Barzani. They haven't really spoken face-to-face for months and months, it seems, just as these tensions are arising between the two communities. So, what does that do to indicate where things might go?
Well, once again, it all depends on the real outcome of the election, I think, and it depends even more on the fate of the Constitution, because if anyone wants a responsible parliament, reading the Constitution that's been presented for a vote, and the vote was prevented by Baghdad, that's a presidentialist constitution, and it will weaken the already weak parliament there. If that happens, that has to mean greater strains with Baghdad, because the new constitution and the federal constitution of Iraq are in tension with each other over such questions as parliamentarism and especially the boundaries of Kurdistan, the disputed territories, and Kirkuk. So I think whether there's a spirited opposition that develops in the parliament is very important for these broader questions of regional stability as well as internal Kurdish politics.
Well, let's get a call from Malaysia in quickly. See, what would you like to ask?
Hi, Riz.
Hi.
Thanks for you and Al Jazeera and for you giving time at least for Kurdish people a little bit. Yes. I just want to ask 2 points from your guest. It's about just the whole Kurdish area, not just Kurdish of Iraq.
Okay.
First of all, what your guests are thinking if Kurdish are Kurdish in Iran, Iraq, Turkey, still they stay in same countries which they are, but without border between them, which they could be easily travel to see them family. And secondly, I want to ask your guests what they done or what they plan to do in other countries, not just in Iraq. Thanks.
Okay, I didn't catch the last bit. The signal broke up, but Safin Desai, if I could put that to you first. Our viewer in Malaysia, he was asking why there is that kind of separation between the various Kurdish regions around that part of the world. I guess the second part was really looking at Kurds elsewhere, but your input, please, sir.
I missed the question, but if I may, just a correction to Mr. Faizullah. There were Islamic groups and parties in the parliament, indeed, but they also took part in the government. It was a broad-based government. All parties in the parliament were actually having a portfolio in the government, so you couldn't really have an opposition, an active opposition that can be named as opposition. Hopefully the next one would be somewhat different. As far as the broader issue of separation of the Kurds, unfortunately, historical facts are very clear that there has been injustices against the Kurds. The First World War was a good example whereby out of the remains of the Ottoman Empire, Kurdistan was divided. And unfortunately, this is the case today, and this is a reality that we live through. But we in Iraqi Kurdistan, of course, we have been struggling for the rights of the Kurds in Iraq, and we will continue to fight for democratic rights of the Kurds in Iraq. At the same time, we certainly are concerned by the situation of the Kurds in other parts, and we hope that the other Kurds in other parts in Iran, Turkey, and Syria would enjoy equal rights like other citizens in those countries, and also be able to enjoy their cultural identities.
I'm going to get a call in from Mara in Washington, D.C. Mara, what would you like to ask?
Yes, I would like to ask Mr. Faizullah.
Yep.
How important, Mr. Faizullah, in your opinion, is this election for the future of Kurdish nation? And would it be the first step towards declaring independence?
Okay. So how important do you see this as a selection for the Kurdish nation, and is it the first step in declaring independence? In fact, we had an email that came in, it was a Facebook question from Mara Bukai, and I'll put this to you, same area. It says, Kurdistan should be declared an independent state right after the election, and the Arabs must recognize the cultural pluralism in the Middle East and North Africa. And that's what Mara's asking. What is this the first step?
It certainly is an important step towards consolidating the position of the Kurds in Iraq and showing a better image to the outside world that we are a group of people who are able to run our own affairs. We can hold democratic elections. We can accept defeats and failure as well as success. I don't know if the general mood of the political leadership at this moment is towards independence, but it certainly is in the minds of every individual Kurd all over the region that this is the ultimate dream of having a nation state like every other nation state that has declared or were helped to declare their independence. So I don't know if it's going to change drastically after the elections, but it certainly will. The results being positive will be a positive step towards that.
Well, I have a question that came in via Facebook for you, Jerry Weinberger. This was from Shwan Kasim. And Shwan says, Kurds are the only nation in the world with a population of 42 million and still without a country. Now we have oil, so changes are coming.
I think oil is always a mixed blessing. So you should watch out what you wish for. It creates economic dependency, laziness, and political corruption almost always. So oil is good, but be careful. The question of the size of the Kurdish population is related to the issue of independence, because independence matters not only to the Kurds, but very, very much to the Turkish government, to the Turkish military, a lot to the Syrians, and even a lot to Iran. So Kurdistan has always been a country caught between a rock and a hard place, and those rocks and hard places are still there. I
want to get this question to Safin Disey in Erbil, and you were a representative for President Masoud Barzani in Turkey for a long time. Jerry Weinberg has raised the issue of Turkey and the importance of the Kurdish question in Turkey. What outcome do you think what do you think the outcome of these elections will do for relations with Turkey, and what could be the longer-term impact?
Indeed, we have had ups and downs in our relation with Turkey, particularly in the last couple of years, and more so in February last year when we had about 120,000 Turkish troops on the border. But we managed to overcome that, and I think it was very well managed. Since March of last year, we have been able to move ahead in our relation with Turkey at slow paces, but I think there has been certain confidence-building measures in our relation. And rather interestingly, Turkey has sent observers to observe these elections. So in a way, it's a recognition of this democratic experience in Iraqi Kurdistan. We, of course, attach a great deal of importance to our relation with Turkey. Despite the fact that we may differ on many issues, yet again we have many things in common. Turkey as a NATO member country, a US ally, a candidate member of EU, a developed country, but of course at the same time with a large Kurdish population there. So we need to have this good relation, and in fact with all our neighbors, Iran and Syria included.
Mr. Disey, I have to stop you there and thank you as well, Bashwan and Jerry as well, because we've run out of time. I want to thank you for contributing to this debate, though.
It was a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Remember, if you have any comments or questions for the show, you can always email us at riz@aljazeera.net. Also, keep in mind you can download podcasts of the show from iTunes. This week's episode is my conversation with former US Secretary of State Madeleine Albright and former National Security Advisor Sandy Berger on US foreign policy. From me and the team, we'll see you next time.